back to the stage. I'm Senior Editor Kevin Van Ward, and I'm joined by Matt of Square Enix. And how are you doing?
Very good. Very busy, but so far we've been having a great show.
That's great. You're here because you are going to be showing off some Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn.
Yep.
And obviously, your game has gone through a lot from its initial iteration.
It has, yes. So we're getting near the home stretch now. We're getting close to launch. We're finalizing our beta phases, and we're almost there, but just a little bit more to go.
So, Matt, before we get, because we've got some footage to show of the
Sure.
game, but before we do that, why don't you go ahead and just sort of outline sort of what this game was, what Final Fantasy XIV Online was, what this means for the initial release, what A Realm Reborn really is when compared to the initial release.
I mean, yeah, that subtitle is very well chosen because honestly, everything has been reborn from scratch. When we originally launched, we had a lot of, concern with lag and a lot of server response time issues, and players weren't happy with a lot of the choices that we made. And honestly, we weren't satisfied with how we were presenting the game either. So that's when we decided, you know what, this is a Final Fantasy title. It's very important for us in our community to get it right for those guys. So it's important that we start over. We rebuild almost from scratch. We have new graphics engine, new server structure. Everything is redone. The whole world has been redone. So even areas that were existing in the version 1.0 look completely different now. You'll be like, oh, I kind of recognize, I know the name of this area, but this is all brand new to me.
So how do you do that transition? How do you move from what it is now? What are people going to experience when they go from Final Fantasy XIV to Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn?
I mean, when they first log in, they're going to see a lot of new changes immediately. The cool thing is that we made sure that anybody that was playing before, it was really important that we keep all their progress. So we didn't just, we didn't wipe everybody's character and just wipe them all out and say, okay, everybody, sorry, you're starting fresh. Thanks for supporting us, but you're starting over. We made sure that all that stuff transitions over while at the same time creating tons of new content from scratch for the early gamers, for the low-level people, and the high-level people at the same time. But I mean, immediately when you go in, you're going to see the world is completely different. So even if you've only played one day of version 1.0, you're going to see a difference. And if you're coming in fresh, you're just going to see a beautiful environment, beautiful world to explore, beautiful new things to try out.
So if you've got any questions out there, if you're watching, make sure to use Twitter hashtag GameSpot83 or just ask in the Twitch TV chat. I'm looking at twitch.tv/GameSpot. Ask any questions you might have for Matt there. I'll be happy to ask that question on your behalf. And in the meanwhile, let's go ahead and talk specifically about all the changes that are coming up. Well, not all. We'd spend forever talking about them.
Right.
But let's first start with talking about what's essentially sort of what hasn't been lost. Let me ask, for example, about the crafting system. Maybe one of the better aspects of the original release. How has that changed, evolved, and so on and so forth?
Sure. Crafting is something that we paid a lot of attention to when we were doing A Realm Reborn. People enjoyed it in version 1.0, but we made sure that we took a lot of the complaints that they did have and we made sure to streamline it at the same time. So now it's not so much like a random number generator. You're no longer kind of like, well, okay, I'm going to press craft on this thing and I hope it works. I hope it doesn't blow up in my face. I hope it actually produces something and I don't lose my materials. So we made sure that we took it and we are a lot more transparent on what's happening in the system so people are able to actually see and track their progress and see what's happening with their crafting. So people have really responded really well to that so far in our alpha testing and our beta testing too. So we're really happy with how that's going right now.
So Brennan Walsh on Twitter wants to ask about the subscription model and how you get into Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, and it's not free to play, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about that?
So we have the typical, purchase the package, you get 30 days free for your new account. So we have created 2 different tiers for people who want to try out, you get 1 character per world, you get 8 characters total. So we're not making it so it's like you have 1 chance, you have 1 character. We're actually giving you a pretty good breadth of characters for a lower price than our normal standard rate. But if you do go for the standard monthly subscription, you get a total of 40 characters, and you can have multiple characters per world. But the cool thing about Final Fantasy XIV, compared to other MMOs, usually you choose 1 class, and you're stuck on that character class your entire character. That's it. If you really want to try something else new, you're like, oh, I'm kind of tired of being a tank. I guess I'll have to re-roll and start all over. As a casting class. But the cool thing about 14 is we have the armory system in place, which allows you basically just by changing the weapon that's in your hand to instantly change your class. And you're able to actually level all of the classes up to max level on your 1 character. So you're no longer forced to like, okay, when you're creating your character, you don't have that dilemma of, okay, well, I better choose the right one, which is the best one, and that's what I'm going to stick with the rest of my life. So that's one of the coolest things that, I think we're looking forward to showing players that have not seen that system before.
So Demo1131 on Twitch asking about the combat system and what it's like. The original, the first release, you know, pretty typical for MMOs, but maybe a little bit slower pace, maybe not quite as responsive as we're used to. What's it like from moment to moment?
It's been really addressed. That slowness, that slow plotting kind of attacking. You know, a lot of what we had before was like, okay, you got your enemy, and they'll do a few things where you'll move around, you'll need to dodge a few things, but you know, it was the servers were so slow, and the character animation would lock you in place, and people weren't able to move freely around. That's one of the first things that we addressed in Realm Reborn is the battle system. We made it a lot, you know, smoother, as you can see. It's a lot quicker paced. It's a lot more jumping around. You're paying attention to where you are. Your classes aren't just standing in front of the monster and tanking it and spanking it. You're moving. Some of your classes, you know, you'll have special actions. You need to attack from behind. You got to run around. Then you can do an attack from the side for a special combo effect. So it's a lot more interactive, and especially with jumping now, people are having a lot more fun actually in the battle, you know, not so much like, okay, I'm a healer, I'm going to stand in the healer spot, and I'm not going to move the entire fight. It's a lot more reactive now to the battle system.
Now, on the subject of servers, let me ask, the original game, server-side UI, perhaps not the most popular of choices. What new, different?
Yes, the entire UI has been rebuilt from the ground up. That was one of the most important things to get right. And we've been working on that. We first launched our new version in alpha, and then we made sure to get a lot of our 1.0 players into the alpha version ASAP so they can see the new UI, see how much faster it is. It's all responsive. It's what you expect in an MMO, and it's really important that we got that right. And we've been refining it and refining it and refining it through our various beta test phases. But so far, people are able to use it perfectly now, so that's great news.
That is good news. Now Matt, you've got to be tired at this point of all of everything that you talk about being not really about the game so much as everything that's different about the game as opposed to version 1.0. So let's just talk about the game on its own terms rather than, hey, this is improved, that's improved. What do we expect from Final Fantasy XIV or Realm Reborn that maybe sets it apart, that's not just, you know, it's like this game or like this game? What makes it Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XIV alone?
That is a great question. It's really important that we use Final Fantasy first and foremost. Since we have 25 years of Final Fantasy heritage behind us, the cool thing is our producer and director, Yoshida, he's a huge Final Fantasy gamer himself, so he knows, you know, what players love in previous Final Fantasies. And what he's been doing, he's been pulling in aspects of those games into the Final Fantasy XIV and Realm Reborn to make sure that people that are familiar with our titles, I mean, we have our Chocobos, the Moogles, Cactuars, and Cid, of course. But, you know, we're also bringing in really deep things like Limit Break system from Final Fantasy VII, the Materia system from Final Fantasy VII. We're going to have a huge dungeon raid referred to the Crystal Tower from Final Fantasy III. We have Magitech armor from Final Fantasy VI. So it's cool that we have like this 25 years of history to pull from, and we're using that. And, you know, it's not just like we're putting it in, we're actually, you know, building it into Final Fantasy XIV too. So it's not like it just sticks out like, oh, we're going to go walk over here to the FF7 land or something, but it all fits within the world of Erzea, and it's pretty cool. And our director's even teased, you know, he's a huge fan of 7, so he likes the golden saucer, and he's like, you know, it'd be really cool to have something like that in Final Fantasy XIV.
So a lot of people wanting to know, hey, when are beta invites going out and so on and so forth. So why don't you lay out right now like what the beta plan is? And this is because you're not just talking PC anymore, right. You're talking PS3 as well. So
exactly. Actually, tomorrow it kicks off phase 3 of our beta test. So it's like you said, it's not just PC. It's also the very first time we're introducing the game to PlayStation 3 users. So it's going to be a big change. And the cool thing about it is we've gone through multiple phases so far, so we've been refining this entire time. It's not like we're doing phase 1, phase 2, and then we're like, okay, well, now it's time for phase 3. We're adjusting as we're going. Each week we're doing, you know, updates and letting the community know, okay, here's what we changed based on your feedback. And phase 3 is like pretty much the huge big reveal. We're inviting everybody anybody that's had purchased Final Fantasy 14 and has an account will be able to join Phase 3 of the beta test. We're sending out tons of PS3 invites, I believe today, for the PlayStation Network users and things like that, and they're going to be joining us. We're going to be running this weekend, so right when we finish here, we go right back to work tomorrow. We'll be starting, I think, 2 a.m. and then just watching the servers going, and it's going to be it's really exciting because, you know, previously in the other phases of our beta test, we were limited to one area and a few classes, and the cool thing about Phase 3, we're opening up all the areas, all the starting city-states. We're going to have all the classes available, so people who, you know, are like, okay, I played Phase 1 and 2, I'm ready for more content, and to really check out more of the systems. We have a lot more systems in place now for them to test out.
So lots of beta stuff to come for Final Fantasy 14 or Realm Reborn. You got a date pinned down for the official...
Yes, we do. We are getting closer and closer. August 27th is the launch of Final Fantasy 14 and Realm Reborn on PC and PS3.
August 27th, you heard it here. So Matt, first of all, thanks for coming by. It's great to see how the game is shaped up, and I can't wait to play more of it. And as for what's happening out there on the floor, I think we've got some Alienware action. So why don't we go out and see what's happening out there?